The waiter came by 3 times to ask if we were ready to order. Each time, she waved him off with a laugh. That laugh, the one she used to save for when I did impressions of her dad trying to parallel park, it now belonged to someone else. I counted how many times she touched her necklace. 8. It's a nervous habit. Only this time, she wasn't nervous. She was thrilled, excited, drunk on something I couldn't see. Except I could. He was sitting right across from her. Gideon. The name had come up once or twice over the last few months. Gideon from Strategy. Gideon's email. Gideon accidentally locked the office fridge. He was a ghost then, a harmless footnote in her daily recap. Now he was flesh and smirking. She had no idea I was watching her. How could she? Her eyes never left his mouth. The dinner was supposed to celebrate her promotion. I wore the shirt she once said made me look dangerously kissable. She didn't comment on it tonight. She didn't even glance at me when I sat down. They had their own language. Words like deck synergy and post-funnel churn, but none of that mattered. It wasn't what they said. It was the way she leaned in when he spoke. Like every sentence he formed was a secret being unraveled just for her. I tried to sip my water without shaking. My hands weren't cooperating. I imagined standing up and flipping the table. Not out of rage, just to interrupt whatever spell he had her under. But instead, I folded my napkin into smaller and smaller squares until my thumbnails snapped from the pressure. She told me I was being quiet. I told her the duck smelled good. She didn't order the duck. I had no idea what she ordered. She never even asked what I wanted. Gideon laughed at something on his phone and tilted the screen toward her. She covered her mouth, giggling. My wife, the woman who once made fun of oversharers and emoji texters, now laughing at memes with a man who wore no socks with his loafers. I finally looked around the room. We were the only table where one person wasn't talking. Me. That's when I reached for my coat. She noticed this time. Babe? She asked, and for a second, I thought I saw confusion. I stood up, pushed in my chair. Go ahead and order without me, I said. You've been doing everything else without me already. Her mouth opened. No sound. I left, and she didn't follow. When I got home that night, I didn't slam the door. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream into a pillow like in the movies. I just sat in the dark, shoes still on, jacket zipped halfway. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the house. I stared at the wall until it blurred, then blinked until it came back into focus, as if I could force reality to reload into something different. She didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't ask where I went. At some point after midnight, headlights swept across the blinds. Her car. I heard the front door open, then soft footsteps. I expected panic, or at least curiosity. Instead, she walked past me in the dark living room like I was a coat rack. No, where were you? No, are you okay? Just a murmured, I'm exhausted, followed by the quiet click of the bedroom door shutting. I didn't follow her. Couldn't. My body physically refused. I slept, if you can call it that, on the couch, twitching through half-dreams and imaginary conversations where I actually said all the things I wanted to say at that table. By morning, the light through the window had turned the room a soft gold. Her laptop was still open on the kitchen island, the screen glowing in standby. She must have been too distracted to close it before going to bed. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. I hate that I looked. But when you start to feel like a stranger in your own marriage, logic gets replaced by hunger. Not for revenge. Not even for truth. Just for confirmation that you're not insane. I tapped the trackpad. The screen lit up. There were no passwords. No locks. Just her inbox. Wide open, as if daring me to know what she really thought when I wasn't around. The first thing I noticed? A starred message at the top. From Gideon. Subject line. Last night was electric fire. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Instead, I scrolled down and saw dozens of threads between them. Not work emails. These were sent from her personal account. Nighttime timestamps. Subject lines like, still laughing at what you said faced with tears of joy, and can't sleep, your fault LOL. Most of the messages were short, flirty, playful, casual in that calculated way people use when pretending they're not playing with fire. But one email made my throat tighten. Do you think he suspects anything? There it was. Cold and clean. Not even capitalized. My name wasn't mentioned. But I didn't need it to be. That one sentence ended whatever sliver of denial I had left. I hadn't just imagined her affection draining away over the past 6 months. I hadn't misread her sudden obsession with working late or her new boundaries about checking her phone when we were together. She was hiding something from me. Or rather, she was hiding me from someone else. I heard the bedroom door open. I clicked the lid shut and stepped away. She walked in, wrapped in a robe, her hair still messy from sleep, eyes puffy like she'd been up late. Maybe she had. Maybe with him. She saw me standing by the island and paused, scanning my face like she could sense the shift. "You didn't come to bed?" she said softly. I didn't answer. Her gaze dropped to the laptop, then back to me. A long silence. Then, with unnerving calm, she asked, "Did you look through it?" I waited a beat too long. And in that moment, that silent, breathless space between us, something changed. Her face didn't crumble. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She smirked. Just a flicker. Barely there. But real. A twitch of the lips that said more than any confession ever could. I left the kitchen before I said something I couldn't take back. It's strange how quickly your home stops feeling like home once trust has been burned out of it. You start noticing things you never paid attention to before. The way her keys sound when she drops them in the bowl. How quickly she closes the bathroom door now. The absence of music when she gets ready in the morning. She always used to play that terrible indie pop stuff she knew I hated, but now? Silence. Like even the air between us is keeping secrets. The day after I found the emails, we barely spoke. She went about her morning like nothing had changed. Toast, coffee, scrolling her phone. I sat across from her at the table, sipping mine, pretending I hadn't read the most damning sentence in our relationship's history just hours earlier. She never asked. I never confessed. But something passed between us in those still moments. Something thick and ugly and unspoken. She knew. I knew. And we were both pretending not to. Later that afternoon, while she was showering, I reached into her purse. Not to snoop, I told myself. Not really. I just needed to know if my reality was truly as warped as it felt. You can only gaslight yourself for so long before something cracks. There was a receipt, folded in quarters, stuffed beside a lipstick I'd never seen before. It was from a boutique hotel in town, not far from her office. The date on it was last Tuesday. A Tuesday she told me she worked late because the presentation crashed and they had to rebuild it from scratch. The line item was simple. Room 708. One night. 2 guests. Charged to her personal card. My hands were shaking as I read it, like it was radioactive. I wanted to believe it was innocent. Maybe she had to book it for a colleague. Maybe her boss needed a last-minute stay and she paid, planning to get reimbursed. But in her purse? Folded and hidden? No explanation? I waited until she left for work before I made the call. I dialed the hotel number printed at the bottom of the receipt. I had no plan. I didn't even know what I was going to ask. I just knew I couldn't sit in that kitchen pretending the walls weren't closing in anymore. A man picked up. Not the front desk. Not an automated line. A man. Groggy voice. Like I'd woken him. "Hello." I froze. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. "Hello," he said again, a little more alert now. I hung up. My heart was pounding so hard I had to sit down. I stared at my phone like it might explain itself. Why would a man answer the number listed as the hotel's main line? That wasn't normal. Not even close. So either he had the front desk line forwarded to a cell, which made no sense, or I had just dialed a room. But that's not how hotel numbers work. Unless someone had recently stayed there and left a call forwarding request. I picked up the receipt again. Dialed the hotel's direct number manually, this time double-checking each digit. The front desk answered. Corporate-sounding woman. Polite. Robotic. I asked if room 708 had a call forwarding service or something like that. She hesitated. Told me she couldn't share that kind of information. Privacy policy. I thanked her and hung up again. Now my hands were steady, unnaturally steady, like my body knew something my brain was still refusing to admit. I walked to the bedroom, opened our shared dresser, and began looking for more. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. When you're standing at the edge of the cliff, it's almost worse not knowing how far the fall is. And that's when I found it. A small, white card tucked inside her jewelry box, behind some earrings she hadn't worn in years. A room key. No label. No envelope. Just a plain plastic key card with a red triangle logo in the corner. The same logo from the hotel receipt. I sat on the bed and stared at it for a long time. It was real. It wasn't in my head. And it wasn't over. I heard the front door open. She was home early. I shoved the key card back where I found it and closed the box. Then I stood there, heart in my throat, as she called out cheerfully from the kitchen. "Kurt, you won't believe who I ran into at lunch today." I already knew the answer. I could hear it in her voice. And still, I played along. "Who?" I asked, my tone neutral, practiced. There was a pause. Then she smiled and said it. "Gideon." I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I lay next to her, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, wondering how many of those breaths she had once taken beside someone else. Her shoulder was inches away, but it felt like I was staring across an ocean. She shifted once in the night and touched my hand without thinking. I flinched, then froze, pretending to be asleep. Seconds later, her fingers pulled back. The space between us grew again. By morning, I had already decided. I was going to follow her. I didn't have a plan, and I hated what I was becoming. The kind of man who waits for his wife to leave just so he can tail her like a stranger. But after the laptop, the receipt, the phone call, and the key card, I couldn't afford to keep pretending. Something inside me had broken loose. Not rage, not jealousy, just this quiet, sharp desperation to know. She left the house in a navy blazer and cream heels, holding a smoothie she didn't finish. I watched her pull out of the driveway and disappear down Elm Street. I waited exactly 5 minutes, then grabbed my keys and followed, careful not to get too close. She didn't suspect anything. She never even looked in the rearview mirror. She didn't go to her office. That was the first lie of the day. Instead, she drove to the industrial district. You wouldn't even know it from the road. It's a strange cluster of old warehouses that have been converted into co-working lofts and design studios. Artsy tech types, people with ironic tattoos and standing desks. I parked a block away and watched from my car, palms sweating against the steering wheel. She entered through a side door of a building marked Wellington Collective. I'd never heard of it. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then Gideon arrived. I knew it was him instantly. Same tailored coat. Same perfect posture. Same smug expression I remembered from the dinner. He didn't knock. Just typed something on his phone and the door buzzed open. I got out and walked slowly past the building, pretending to look at the storefronts. As I reached the front window, I glanced in casually, like a stranger might. My heart stopped. They were in there. Not just talking. Not just collaborating. They were sitting side by side on a couch that didn't belong in any office. No papers. No laptops. No presentations. Just her hand resting on his thigh, like it had always been there. The rest of the space was empty. It wasn't even a real business. Just a showroom with a couple of trendy furniture pieces and fake succulents on open shelves. A front. A set. A place for lies to live in daylight. I kept walking, past the building, past the next corner, past the point of reason. My mind was screaming, but my face stayed blank. The kind of blank you wear when your reality is breaking in slow motion and you still have to breathe. I wanted to storm in. I wanted to drag him out by his overpriced collar and ask her why. Why all the lies? Why the performance? Why take me for a fool? But I didn't. Instead, I walked back to my car. I sat inside with the windows cracked and stared down at my wedding ring. I twisted it once, then twice, then pulled it off and set it on the passenger seat like it didn't belong on me anymore. I drove home in silence. No music, no thoughts. Just that image of them. Not kissing, not caught in some dramatic clinch, but simply comfortable. That was the part that hurt the most. The ease of it. The routine. The absence of guilt on her face. When she came home hours later, she was humming. She poured herself a glass of wine and asked if I'd eaten. I said no. "You should eat," she said, turning away. And that was it. No confession. No mention of where she'd been. No questions about my day. Just that casual concern from a woman who no longer saw me as something worth explaining herself to. Later that night, when she was asleep, I opened her closet. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. What I found was something I never expected. A shoebox, tucked high on the shelf. Inside were photos. Real printed ones. Not digital. Most were of us, from early years, road trips, birthdays. But near the bottom, I found one that didn't belong. It was a Polaroid. Her. Gideon. That same couch. Different day. Same position. But this time, her head was on his shoulder. His arm around her waist. And she was smiling. Not the smile she gives to friends. Not the smile she gives to clients. The smile she used to save for me. The mind plays cruel games when you're sitting in silence. You start replaying things, not just recent memories, but years of moments, like reruns from a show that used to comfort you and now just leaves you feeling sick. I thought about her laugh on our first date, the way she used to fall asleep mid-movie and deny it every time. The road trip to Oregon where she danced barefoot on the beach while I took her photo. That was the moment I decided I'd marry her. That photo, in fact, is still framed in our hallway, or was until this morning. Because this morning, I took it down. I took down every photo I ever took of her. Then I remembered the camera itself, the one I bought her last year for our anniversary. It was a mirrorless Fujifilm X100V, expensive, but she had always talked about wanting to learn photography, so we could share something creative. She used it a lot at first, posting filtered shots of coffee mugs and sunsets with captions like, "Learning to see the world differently." Then, suddenly, she stopped. Said it wasn't clicking, but I never took it back. It stayed on the bookshelf in the study, untouched for months. Today, after seeing that Polaroid in the shoebox, I couldn't ignore the itch crawling at the back of my brain. Something told me to check it. Not because I expected to find anything, just because I was afraid not to. When I powered it on, the screen blinked twice and displayed no images. My stomach dropped. But then I remembered, this model had dual storage. A small internal memory cache and an SD card slot. I popped open the compartment. No card. But when I slid off the leather grip case, I heard something shift. There it was. A micro SD tucked in the side seam, taped with black electrical tape so it wouldn't fall out. Hidden. Deliberately. I stared at it in my palm for a full minute before sliding it into the reader on my laptop. At first, there were nothing but still shots. A pier. A stairwell. A glass of red wine on a hotel nightstand. Then came the portraits. Intimate ones. Close-ups of Gideon's hand holding hers. The back of his neck while he tied his tie in a mirror. Lana sitting in a window in a slip, staring out at something blurred by depth of field. The timestamp on that photo? 3 days after our anniversary dinner. The dinner where she told me I was the most stable thing in her life. I stopped scrolling and just sat there, staring at the folder. There was one final file. A video. It was titled simply, "For Keeps." My hands hovered over the keyboard. I didn't want to see it. I already knew what it would show, but I needed to know if she ever once mentioned my name. If she ever expressed hesitation, guilt, anything human. I played it. It was recorded inside that same fake showroom space I'd seen them in. The couch, the shelves, same lighting. She was seated in his lap, laughing about something I couldn't hear clearly. The video was shaky, likely handheld. It wasn't staged. It was raw, personal. Not inappropriate in a way that would break TOS or get censored, but deeply, emotionally intimate. The kind of intimacy you can't fake. The kind that carves someone else out of your life entirely. And then she said it. This, right here, is the only thing in my life that feels real. She was smiling when she said it. Not crying. Not conflicted. Just glowing. The way she used to smile at me when we were planning our future. I paused the video. Closed the folder. It wasn't the cheating that broke me. It was that sentence. That confident, careless sentence. Because if that was what felt real, then what had I been? A placeholder? A bridge? Collateral? I sat there in silence for hours, still staring at the paused frame. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't confront her yet, not without knowing what I even wanted from her anymore. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to scream or break anything. I wanted to disappear in a way she'd actually notice. That night, I packed a bag. Just one. Not because I was running, but because I was about to do something she never expected. Leave without warning. Without a speech. Without an apology. Just like she emotionally left me. Piece by piece. Smile by smile. Frame by frame. I didn't sleep the night before I left. I just sat in the guest room. A room we never used, with walls we never painted, and books we never read. I opened the window and let the early spring air cut through the stale silence. It felt like breathing in a different life. A life that belonged to someone else. A man who used to believe his marriage was solid. A man who thought loyalty meant something without needing to be audited. I packed light. One bag. Essentials only. No wedding photos. No mementos. I didn't want the weight of those things dragging behind me like emotional luggage. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. No envelope. No explanation. Just the ring and a single folded letter. In it, I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't even mention Gideon's name. I simply wrote this. This house has become a museum of pretending. I'm tired of being a display piece in someone else's story. If this is freedom for you, I won't stand in its way. Take it. Wear it. Own it. I'll be somewhere real. I left before sunrise, when the street was still asleep and the world was too quiet to argue with me. I drove east, toward the cabin my uncle left me years ago. Off-grid, barely standing, but paid off and surrounded by silence. The kind of silence that doesn't suffocate you. I didn't leave my phone behind. I thought about it, but I couldn't. Not yet. The first 3 days were strangely peaceful. I chopped wood, burned old mail, cooked terrible food, sat on the porch with no music, no Wi-Fi, no clock. I didn't think about her as much as I expected. It was like my brain needed time to process the trauma backlog, and for once, it wasn't in a hurry. But on the fourth night, I got a message. It was from her. Just a text. No hi. No context. Check your email. Subject, blue door. I stared at it for a long time. I thought about deleting it, blocking her, cutting the last thread. But curiosity is a cruel thing. You can't bury it. It digs its way up when you least expect it. The subject line rattled me. Blue door. Those words meant something. Not to anyone else, but to us. It was from our second year together, when we got lost in a small coastal town and ended up spending a night in a bed and breakfast with a bright blue front door. No GPS, no bookings, just instinct and dumb luck. We used to say blue door when we wanted to escape our problems. It was code for let's reset. So I opened the email. There were no words, just a video attachment. It was shaky, clearly handheld, vertical phone format. She was sitting alone in the back seat of an Uber or Lyft. Makeup slightly smudged. Eyes tired in a way I hadn't seen before. Not performance tired. Soul tired. She looked into the camera like it might punch her. Then she spoke. I don't know what I thought I was doing. I mean, I know what I did. I know exactly what I did. But I don't think I felt it until you walked away. Until the house was quiet without your steps. Until your boots weren't by the door. And the faucet still leaks, by the way, which I never fixed because I thought you'd just do it eventually, like always. She looked away for a second, biting her lip. Then she laughed, almost bitterly. You were always there, Kurt. Always. Even when I was a ghost. I didn't cheat because you weren't enough. I cheated because I was too much and didn't know how to carry it. Gideon saw a version of me that felt easier. You always saw the whole version. Even the ugly parts. She sniffed. Wiped her eye. Not dramatic. Just tired. You left your ring. I found it. It felt heavier than I remembered. Like it was holding every moment I threw away without realizing. I don't deserve you. I know that now. And I'm not asking for you back. I just needed you to hear me say, I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. Because you never deserved to be erased. The screen went dark. I watched it twice. Then a third time. Not because I forgave her. I didn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But because, for the first time in weeks, she sounded like the woman I married. Not the woman I lost. Not the stranger laughing on someone else's couch. Just Lana. Raw. Cracked open. Unfiltered. I didn't reply. Not then. I didn't know what I'd say. But I didn't delete the video, either. And that terrified me. The day I agreed to meet her, I didn't shave. I didn't iron my shirt. I didn't pace the floor or rehearse anything in my head. I just sat on the porch with a mug of black coffee and watched the clouds roll over the pines until the time on my cracked phone screen told me it was time to leave. We chose neutral ground. A small coffee shop downtown we used to go to years ago, the kind with mismatched mugs, and an owner who always played vinyl records too loud. I didn't know if it still existed, but she suggested it, which told me she remembered. Maybe that was her angle. Nostalgia. Memory. That soft kind of manipulation people use when they're hoping to rewrite the past with just enough sweetness to make the bitter parts fade. I parked 2 blocks away and walked slowly. Not to be dramatic, just to buy myself a little more time before everything tilted again. She was already inside when I got there. Same booth near the back. Same nervous tapping of her fingernails on the ceramic cup. When she saw me, she gave a smile. Not wide, not fake, just cautious. Like she wasn't sure who I was anymore. I slid into the seat across from her. No hug, no handshake, just silence, thick and unfinished. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She looked different. Not physically, but in energy. Like the storm had passed through her too, and left debris in places she hadn't cleaned up yet. There were shadows under her eyes. Her hair wasn't done the way she normally wore it when she was on presentation mode. This was Lana, unpolished. Maybe even scared. I don't want to waste your time, she began. I needed to see you. Not through a screen. Not from the past. I waited. Let her fill the space. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. She took a breath and reached into her bag. Pulled out an envelope. I wrote everything down. All of it. Dates. How it started. What I told him. What I didn't. I didn't want to just say I was sorry. I needed to give you something that felt real. I stared at the envelope. I didn't reach for it. But then, just as I was about to say something, the bell above the cafe door chimed, and a figure stepped inside. It was him, Gideon. He walked in like he owned oxygen. Sharp coat, colder eyes. He scanned the cafe until he saw us, then hesitated, like he hadn't expected me to actually show up. I didn't move. Neither did she. But I saw it, the subtle shift in her shoulders, the way her posture folded slightly inward. Defensive. Cornered. He walked over slowly and stopped beside our table. I thought you said, he started. I didn't ask you to come, she cut in sharply, her voice low but firm. I said I needed to talk to him alone. I was worried, he said. But the way he looked at me wasn't concern. It was calculation. I finally spoke. You follow her everywhere now. He smirked, but there was no humor in it. I'm not here to fight you, Curtis, he said. She was upset. I wanted to make sure she was okay. I think we've established that what she wants and what she needs don't always align, I said flatly. Lana stood up. Between us. Visibly trembling now. This was a mistake, she whispered, almost to herself. I told you not to come. But he didn't leave. He stayed. And then he dropped something on the table. A flash drive. I looked at it, then at him. What is that? I asked, jaw clenched. He didn't answer. Just looked at Lana. Your secrets aren't just yours anymore, he said to her, not unkindly, but with finality. Then he turned and walked out, leaving a wake of silence in his place. Lana sat down slowly, eyes wide and terrified. What is that? I asked again. She didn't speak. She looked down at the flash drive like it had teeth. I reached across the table and picked it up. Lana. She looked up at me, broken. That's not from me, she whispered. It's about me. I put it in my jacket pocket without another word. I didn't finish my coffee. I didn't take the envelope. I left. The drive felt heavy in my coat, like it was already shifting the direction of everything. I didn't know what was on it, but I had this sinking feeling that whatever I thought the worst was, I hadn't even scratched the surface yet. I sat on the edge of the bed in the cabin with the flash drive between my fingers, turning it like a coin. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't checked the news, hadn't spoken to a single soul in 2 days. The only light came from my laptop screen, waiting. I hadn't inserted it yet. Not because I was scared, but because I already knew it would be the final piece. The one that either crushes or clears you. When I finally did it, the drive lit up like a heartbeat. One folder, titled simply, You Deserve to Know. Inside were documents, screenshots, and a long audio file. It was Gideon's voice, recorded like a confession. At first I thought it would be about them. More detail, more pain. But instead, it turned out to be something different. He didn't sound like the smug executive I met at dinner. He sounded tired, honest, human. He talked about how things started between them, yes, but then he went deeper, how it was never supposed to go as far as it did. How Lana was unraveling before his eyes, and he fed into it. How he used her need for validation to boost his own fragile ego. He admitted he pushed it further than she wanted at times. Emotionally, manipulatively. That it was never really love, more like a performance that spun out of control. And then he said something that made me freeze. If you're listening to this, Curtis, I need you to understand something. She talked about you all the time. Not in a bad way. In a guilty way. You were the only person she still respected after everything started falling apart. I took advantage of that. I kept her tethered to me with attention and pressure and timing. And yeah, I know what that makes me. But the truth is, she never stopped being yours. Even when she didn't deserve to be. He paused for a long time. You could hear birds in the background. That's the truth. I'm walking away from her. For her sake and yours. You're the only one who might actually help her become who she used to be. Or at least, who she wants to be again. I sat there for a long time after the file ended. Numb. Not because of shock, but because something inside me finally settled. It didn't excuse everything. It didn't undo the betrayal. But it made me realize something I hadn't allowed myself to consider. Sometimes people don't break their vows to hurt you. Sometimes they break them because they're broken themselves. And sometimes, Redemption isn't about restoring the past. It's about building something honest from the wreckage. A week later, I returned to the city. Not to beg, not to resume, but to talk, really talk. We met in the park near where we used to live. No tears, no tension, just two people sitting on a bench under early evening light. I listened to the recording, I told her, and I read your letter. She nodded, quietly bracing herself. I still don't know what the future looks like, I said, but I'm not angry anymore. I'm tired of being angry, and I believe you're trying. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She reached out, not to hold my hand, but to offer something. It was my ring. I kept it, she said, not because I expected anything, just because it still felt like part of me. I didn't take it from her, but I smiled. For the first time in what felt like forever. We'll see, I said. Maybe we can start again. Not from the beginning, just from the truth. We walked for a while after that, quietly, not holding hands, not planning the future, just sharing the same space, with no lies between us, no roles to play. I don't know if we'll make it, but for the first time in months, that doesn't terrify me. Because I made it out of the fog, I found myself again. And whatever happens next, whether it's with her or without her, I know I won't disappear inside someone else's silence again. I matter. And that's how this really ends.